Okay. For day 10, we're going to talk about rational numbers. The notes here make it seem like rational numbers are very easy, but their operations with them can be very difficult. But for this part, all they're going to be doing is you trying to determine if a number is rational or irrational. So that in and of itself is pretty easily. A rational number is any number that can be expressed as the quotient or fraction of two integers. And so an integer is positive and negative whole numbers, like -5 or 23. Rational numbers are when we start getting things like decimals and fractions. All right. So the questions you may encounter on the test related to rational numbers include something like choose a rational number as a solution option or use rational numbers in the calculations. Whenever you're using rational numbers in the calculations, you're not going to be using things like pi. Pi is not a rational number. All right. So we talked about there's some formulas and things you need to know. There's also some definitions you need to know. So knowing the definition of a rational number, along with keeping some examples in mind, should help you with questions that refer to rational numbers. So here's some examples. There are things like 3, -3, 1/3, -7/8, 0.97, 0.21, and the square root of 9. Those are all rational numbers. You can also have improper fractions like 12 over 3. That's a rational number as well. All right. Um, pi is not a rational number because it does not have a stopping point. Anything that can't be broken up. So when you square a number, you're taking that value and you're multiplying it by itself. When you square root, you're doing the opposite of that. So the square root of 9 would be 3 because 3 times 3 gives you 9. All right. So when you're saying something is an irrational number, you're basically saying it's not rational. So that is anything that's not a perfect square, which means something that you can't take a value and multiply by itself to get. 11 only has two factors. There are 1 and 11. So it is not a rational number. You can't get rid of the square root symbol there. Or a decimal that goes on without repeating. It can't be written as a fraction. So here's one that they showed you that can't go on without repeating. But pi is also one of those. All right. Just because we use 3.14 does not mean that pi is actually 3.14. That's an approximation. All right. So just knowing the difference there is pretty important. The question they gave you here is really easy because they already gave you the answer. So it says, which of the following is not an irrational number? So again, in order to be a perfect square, if you're not sure, check your calculator, but the number has to have something that you can multiply by itself to get that value. All right. 3 doesn't have any, so that's irrational. 5, same thing, irrational. 6 is 3 times 2, but those numbers are not the same, so it's irrational. 8, again, 2 times 4. So not the same, irrational. The square root of 9, which you could break into the square root of 3 times the square root of 3, would be 3, right? Because these values are the same. So that would be a rational number. But they already told you it was a rational number up here. So not a super helpful example. Please let me know if you have any questions about these. I will be more than glad to help you. Good luck.